Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the...
Hello, and welcome back to Frontline Rejects. Today we're going to be talking about the Tikka T3X Lite stainless chambered in 30-06, which is one of my all-time favorite hunting rifles. We'll also discuss the optic I've got paired with this rifle, which is the Leupold VX-5 in 3-15 power. But first we'll take a look at Tikka's history, which started production of firearms parts more than 100 years ago. Tikka began manufacturing components for firearms in 1918 and acquired the equipment necessary to produce their own barrels in 1920. By 1927, Tikka was producing the M27 Mosin variant, which was issued to the Finnish military. During the 20s, most of the company's stock was purchased by German interests. In the early 30s, it branched out into the manufacture of other military arms, such as submachine guns and heavy machine guns. Around 1937, the company began to produce hunting rifles as well, although these took a backseat to the military hardware that they were producing. After the Second World War, ownership of Tikka was transferred to the Soviet Union, who would cease the production of firearms to focus on the manufacture of sewing machines. The company was purchased by Finnish businessmen in 1957, and over the next decade, the majority of the shares were purchased by the Central Cooperative Bank. In the 60s, Tikka returned to the manufacture of firearms for the first time, began building guns from parts produced completely in-house, which was most notably the M76 rifle. Nokia purchased Tikka in 1974 after already purchasing the company which owned Sako, and merged the two companies in 1983 before merging Sako Tikka with the parent company in the beginning of 1986. In 2000, Sako Tikka was purchased by Berger, and sales of Tikka have grown steadily in the US since the acquisition by Berger and the introduction of the T3 rifle in 2003. In 2016, Tikka overhauled the T3 rifles and redesigned them as the T3X, with the main changes being a larger ejection port, a steel recoil lug in place of aluminum, and a metal bolt shroud in place of plastic. As previously mentioned, the rifle we are talking about today is the T3X version. Of course, it's chambered in 30-06, empty with no optic. It weighs 6.4 pounds and has a 22.4-inch barrel which utilizes a 1-in-11 twist. The barrels are cold hammer forged, and this model has a foam-filled composite stock. The rifle has a 2-position safety and a user-adjustable single-stage trigger. Now, what do I like about the rifle? Well, as the name implies, it's very lightweight. As we mentioned, it's just over 6 pounds. With the optic mounted, it comes in at 8.1. This makes it very easy to carry. When I've hunted with it, I hardly know it's there until I need it. I like the feel of the stock. Most injection molded stocks have a lot of give in them, which in some cases can cause issues with barrel harmonics, but there is very little flex in the Tikka stock. It is very rigid. The grips on the stock are replaceable, which is very cool. If you don't like the one that comes on it, you can customize it to fit your shooting style. The trigger on the rifle is fantastic. It breaks very clean, and the bolt is extremely smooth. The bolt throw is really good, and there is absolutely no bind when you retract or close the bolt. In my opinion, this rifle is the epitome of a modern take on the classic hunting rifle. It's a no-frills bolt-action rifle that just does the basics extremely well. It is smooth, comfortable to shoot, and very accurate, all while being lightweight and coming in at a relatively affordable price. I have had a few people ask me how accuracy is with a 1-in-11 twist. Most .6s or 308s manufactured in the US come with a 1-in-10 twist, the benefit being that you can run heavier bullets. I think the 11 twist speaks to how the Europeans are using these versus how we are. Although I have not hunted in Europe, it seems to me that driven hunts in thicker timber at closer ranges are much more common. As such, they don't need to stabilize high BC long projectiles, so it makes sense that they might go with a slower twist, which would be better at stabilizing lighter bullets and, due to decreased friction on the bearing surface of the round, marginally improve velocity. All that said, the lightest round I've pushed through this rifle is 130 grain and the heaviest is 190. Later on we'll take a look at how the accuracy with those rounds is, but I can say with certainty that I've never seen any stability issues running 180s or 190s. Perhaps you'd run into an issue pushing bullets north of 200 grains, but that's not something I've needed to do. There is one major drawback that I see with this rifle, which may or may not matter depending on a shooter's individual preferences, and that drawback is that it does not come with a threaded barrel as standard. I've been gaining more of an appreciation for muzzle brakes on hunting rifles for a couple of reasons. First off, there is the obvious reduction in recoil, which on stouter cartridges is nice. But more important than the effect on a shooter's shoulder is what recoil reduction allows you to do. By minimizing recoil, it makes it easier to shoot a rifle accurately. I recently completed a 28 nozzler build, which we'll be doing a video on in the future, and with the brake on that gun, it kicks less than some 6.5 Creedmoors I've shot. With that reduced rearward travel, I find that I spend a lot less time focusing on controlling the movement of the rifle, and more time focusing on my reticle and its placement. Another benefit is decreased scope jump. After taking a shot with a braked rifle, I find the target stays in the glass, which helps me watch my impact. Whether I miss or hit, it's important to know in case I need to adjust for a follow-on shot. And in a hunting situation, this can be critical for someone who is hunting alone, as I frequently do. A cursory review of Tikka's online catalog does show that they are now offering one model of the Super Light and a couple models of the Light with threaded barrels. Primarily those chambered in 300 Win mag, but I haven't seen one of those on a gun store shelf anywhere, and it's unclear whether they're going to continue expanding this option to other models and chamberings. If Tikka offered the T3X as standard from the factory with a threaded barrel on all models, then I think it would cement itself in my mind as my absolute favorite hunting rifle. Now, I have looked into the cost of just having it threaded. One gunsmith quoted me a flat fee of $250 and a 16-week turnaround time. Another refused to do the work because in his opinion there wasn't enough material on the barrel to do the work. And another, which was a 4-hour drive away, quoted me $175 and a 2-week turnaround time. Right now, I don't have concrete plans to get that work done, but it may happen in the future. We'll see. In the rear here, I've got a padded cheek rest. It's a no-name brand rest I picked up off Amazon for about 20 bucks. I'm running these on several of my rifles now, and I really like it. I've got some foam padding crammed underneath it, which puts my eye at the perfect level for the scope, and it's got a zippered pocket on the side with loops for spare cartridges. As mentioned, we're running a Leupold VX-5 HD 3-15x44, and as it's stated in the name, we've got 3 power magnification on the low end and 15 on the high end with a 44mm objective lens. It's got the CDS ZL2 turret, which allows for 2 revolutions of elevation adjustment while eliminating accidental dial movement with the push-button zero-lock system. Of course, we've got side focus parallax adjustment, and this is a second focal plane scope, which is perfectly fine considering we've got a duplex reticle. The glass is incredibly clear with fantastic light transmission, which really comes into play in the first or last 15 minutes of shooting light, which when paired with the illuminated fire dot duplex reticle makes this an awesome optic for hunting in low light situations. This optic is very versatile, it's excellent in low light or in bright conditions, and the magnification range is one of my favorite for a hunting scope. 3 power on the low end is great when you're moving through thick timber, and I've always felt comfortable taking shots out to 600 or so with 15 power magnification. The eye box is very generous, and I like the tough, durable coating that Leupold applies to their scopes. Now, we wanted to give anyone who's considering purchasing one of these rifles an idea of the kind of accuracy they could expect out of this platform. So during a couple different range sessions, we shot some groups with several different kinds of ammunition, which cover a pretty decent range of the projectiles one might run in this rifle in this chambering. Our first group is with a hand-loaded 190 grain Berger VLD, which we have done an expansion video on, and of course links to that will be in the video description. This bullet is loaded in Hornady brass on a Gynex large rifle primer with a max recommended charge of powder from Hodgdon's online reloading data of Ramshot Hunter. Due to this bullet's secant ogive, the bullet is seated about 10 thousandths off the rifling for a COAL of 3.550, which is past max cartridge length of 3.340, requiring me to single feed these. Our second group is with a hand-loaded 130 grains Barnes TTSX, which has been one of my favorite hunting bullets in this cartridge. While the BC is relatively low at .350 due to its lighter for caliber weight at 130 grains, I can push this bullet up to 31-34 feet per second, and I could push it faster, but my current load is a cross between getting good velocity and accuracy. I have found copper bullets to be a little finicky with loading to get good accuracy out of, and I had to experiment with several powders to get a consistent 1 MOA with this bullet. Our third group is with Hornady's 178 grain ELDX, and this is the only ammunition that we'll be shooting today, which is factory loaded. We also have an expansion video coming out on this projectile and this chambering soon, so if you're interested in seeing that and you aren't already subscribed, consider doing so you don't miss it. I'm a fan of Hornady's ELDX line, and after we publish the video on the 178, we will have tested it 5 times, and we'll be getting a 5 cartridge review on it pushed out sometime in the near future. Our fourth and final group is with one of my new favorite bullets for this chambering, the 172 grain Speer Impact, which Speer brought to market very recently. It's a bonded core bullet. We do have an expansion test on this projectile. As we'll see when we get to measuring groups, this actually turned out to be our most accurate load of the day, and caveat, we didn't do any actual load development. We just seemed to happen on a fantastic load on our first try, which is a max recommended charge from Speer of IMR 4831 at 60.2 grains. Taking a look at our first group here from the 190 VLD, we're just under an inch at 0.976. Of course, load data that we previously mentioned is on your lower left. Berger's bullets tend to be a bit finicky with the seating depth, but I'm sure if we played around with our powders and charge weights, we could definitely close the group size. The powder we're running here isn't what we chose through load development, we just selected it to get us the best possible velocity. Our second group is of course the Barnes TTSX, and we're sitting at just above 0.9 of an inch. We stacked 2 on top of each other, and the third is off to the side. I can get just about an inch with this bullet in this loading when I'm really doing my job. Like I mentioned earlier, copper bullets can be a tiny bit finicky with accuracy, and it took me some experimenting to land on this load. This load is on Peterson brass with a Federal large rifle primer set to max COAL of 3.340, with just below a max recommended charge from Barnes online loading data of IMR 4064 at 57.6 grains. The third group was the factory loaded 178 grain Hornady ELDX. Group size here is just over 1.1 inch, which is pretty good in my opinion, considering this isn't hand loaded and is indicative of what I usually see with other factory loaded bullets. Most factory ammo I've ran through this gun prints somewhere in between 1 to 1.75 MOA, which is just fine in my opinion for a hunting gun. Even if you've got a 2-inch group, that really isn't bad considering that at 400 yards, 2 MOA is an 8-inch group and the vital zone radius on a deer is roughly 10 inches. Our last group is with that 172 grain Speer Impact at just over half an inch, and I've been very impressed with this bullet so far. During expansion testing, it performed excellently from both an expansion and weight retention perspective, and I am very much looking forward to using this bullet in the field. Not sure if it's going to be this season, but I do want to see how it performs on game. Of course, the load data is on your lower left and is based on Speer's max recommended charge of IMR 4831 for this bullet. Wrapping up, the Tikka T3X is an amazing rifle, no matter what it's chambered in. It's one of my favorite rifle models, and I feel the same way about the whole Leupold VX-5 HD lineup. But this particular example, with his stainless steel, chambered in 30-06, wearing a VX-5 and 3 to 15 power, is an all-around awesome package. In my opinion, this pairing gives me maximum versatility from hunting closer ranges and thick brush to reaching out across open western slopes. And the classic look, features, and simplicity of both the rifle and optic really speaks to me. Thanks for watching today's video, and if you've got a T3X, sound off in the comments and let us know what you've got and how you like it. If you've got something out of today's content, consider subscribing or liking, and we'll see you next time.